the land of Israel plays a central role in the very first mitzvah that was given to the Jewish people. The Rambam teaches us that Kiddush HaChodesh, the sanctification of the new month, can only take place in the land of Israel, as he derives from the pasuk Ki mitzion tetzei Sorah udvar Hashem mirushalayim. And it's worth noting the anomalous nature of the fact that Kiddush HaChodesh can only be done in Eretz Yisrael. There are many, many mitzvos in the Torah, most of which can be performed both inside the land of Israel and outside of the land of Israel. Only when it comes to one select group of mitzvos do we find that Eretz Yisrael is indispensable in the process. The Mishnah Maseches Kiddushin teaches us that whereas a chovas haguf, a mitzvah upon an individual, applies both outside of Eretz Yisrael and in Eretz Yisrael, mitzvos atluyos ba'aretz, agricultural-based mitzvos, only apply in the land of Israel. So mitzvos such as trumos, masros, leket, shikha, peya, shmita, etc., only apply in the land of Israel because they are agricultural-based. They're based on the holy soil of the land of Israel. But all other mitzvos that are not mitzvos atluyos ba'aretz apply both inside of Eretz Yisrael and outside of Eretz Yisrael. So the question begs itself when we find a pasuk teaching us that Kiddush HaChodesh can only be done in the land of Israel, so the sanctification of the new moon, declaring Rosh Chodesh, can only be done in Eretz Yisrael. Is that simply an exception to the rule? Is it simply a pasuk which teaches us, although it defies regular logic, although usually mitzvos can be done both inside of Eretz Yisrael and outside of Eretz Yisrael, for some reason Kiddush HaChodesh breaks the regular rules? Or is there some other principle behind Kiddush HaChodesh? Is there some other reason that Kiddush HaChodesh uniquely should apply only in the land of Israel, despite the fact that it is not an agricultural-based mitzvah? It's not a mitzvah tluya ba'aretz. Perhaps the answer can be found in a Gemara Mesachos Horius on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. The Gemara Mesachos Horius discusses an institution called the Par Helem Davar Shel Tzibor. What the Par Helem Davar Shel Tzibor is in effect a communal carbon chatas. On an individual level, if a person violates an aveira, shezidono kares v'shegigaso chatas, so a person unintentionally violates an aveira, so then they would be obligated to bring a carbon chatas in the Beis Hamikdash. What if the entire Jewish people violates an aveira b'shogeg? What if all of Klal Yisrael violates an aveira unintentionally? Do we have all of Klal Yisrael, every single individual lines up to bring their own carbon chatas, a line out the door, waiting for people? So the Gemara says no. The Torah, the pasuk says no in Parshas Vayikra. The Torah tells us there is something called the Par Helem Davar Shel Tzibor. If it comes about that the entire Jewish people violates an aveira unintentionally, and how would such a thing come about? The Torah describes V'im kol adas Yisrael yishgu v'ne'elam hadavar me'enei hakahal. What would happen is if the Sanhedrin, the Bezdin HaGadol, the Jewish Supreme Court, would issue an erroneous ruling. And they would paskin that something which is really asr, they say it's mutter. And everyone does that mutter activity under the assumption that it's mutter. And then the Bezdin HaGadol comes back and they say, actually, we made a mistake, and this is asr. But in the meantime, in the interim, so Klal Yisrael had violated that aveira, so we don't have each individual bring their own personal carbon chatos. We have one communal carbon chatos on behalf of everybody called the Par Helem Davar Shel Tzibor. The Gemara Mesachos Horius on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph qualifies that when the halacha says, when the Torah says, V'im kol adas Yisrael yishgu, if all of the Jewish people violate an aveira unintentionally, so all of the Jewish people doesn't literally mean all of the Jewish people. Very often in halacha, when we require all of something, we have a principle called rubo kekulo. Majority suffices as if it's all of it. So the Gemara says, this halacha of Par Helem Davar Shel Tzibor applies not only if all the Jewish people violate the aveira, but if the majority of the Jewish people violate the aveira. And then the Gemara adds one more caveat. The Gemara says it's not just the majority of the Jewish people worldwide, rather, the hora'a halech achar rov yoshvei Eretz Yisrael. When it comes to determining whether we are obligated to bring a Par Helem Davar Shel Tzibor, we go based on the majority of the Jews living in the land of Israel. If 51% of the Jews in Eretz Yisrael violated this aveira, then we're obligated to bring a Par Helem Davar Shel Tzibor. If not, even if the majority of the Jews worldwide violated the aveira, but if in Eretz Yisrael was a minority of the Jews in Eretz Yisrael, we would not be obligated to bring this carbon. And the Gemara explains the reason for this. The reason Eretz Yisrael is so central to the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor is because Hani hu de ikri kahal, aval hanach lo ikru kahal. Jews in Eretz Yisrael are called kahal. Jews outside the land of Israel are not called kahal. Rav Shechter many times has explained in the name of Rav Soloveitchik that what Gemara is teaching is a profound principle, which is that there are two levels of identity of a Jewish person. There is what we call Kedushas Yisrael, which is an individual Jew's identity, and that is the identity which obligates one to keep the mitzvahs of the Torah. That's an individual status of a Jewish person, and that applies all over the world. Wherever a Jew may be found, a Jew has Kedushas Yisrael. But then there is an additional dimension to the identity of a Jew, which is their identity as part of Kahal Yisrael, or Klal Yisrael, an identity as a member of the nation of the Jewish people. And the nation of the Jewish people, Kahal Yisrael, or Klal Yisrael, in its full halachic sense, only exists in the land of Israel. And that's what the Gemara is telling us. Jews in the land of Israel have the status of Kahal. Jews outside the land of Israel, they might have the status of Kedushas Yisrael, but do not have the status of Kahal Yisrael. The Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor is a carbon which relates to the Kahal. The pasuk tells us, "V'nelam davar me'einei hakahal." The kahal does in avera. It's not an individual obligation. I'm not chayiv in the carbon. You're not chayiv in the carbon. Klal Yisrael as a nation is a national responsibility. When it comes to national responsibilities, only Jews in Eretz Yisrael are counted as part of that Kahal Yisrael. Probably because only in Eretz Yisrael we exist as one unit. There is something binding all the Jewish people together in the sense of living in one land with one common focus. In Chutz La'aretz, Jews are scattered throughout the world. That can't be in a full halakhic sense called a kahal. Perhaps this answers the question with which we began as well. Kiddush HaChodesh, the mitzvah of sanctification of the new moon, the mitzvah of declaring Rosh Chodesh, that's not a mitzvah upon any individual. I'm not obligated, you're not obligated, he's not obligated, she's not obligated. The mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh is a national, communal responsibility. It's a national obligation that Klal Yisrael, Kahal Yisrael, must see to it that we have a Jewish calendar. If that's the case, it's a mitzvah incumbent upon Klal Yisrael, upon the Jews as a nation, so then that mitzvah only applies in the land of Israel. And perhaps what the Rambam is telling us, Ki mitzion tetzeh Sorah, udvar Hashem mirushalayim. And it's a very fascinating principle, the very first mitzvah introduced to the Jewish people in Parshas Bo. HaChodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim accentuates many critical themes. One of them being the indispensable role Eretz Yisrael plays in this mitzvah and in defining the notion of Kahal Yisrael in general.